Hello, Remy. I am making this for you so that you can see all of the work that I put into this. Did I need to? No. Do you necessarily want this? Also, no, but I'm doing it anyway. Um, so welcome to my PowerPoint on Sunrise on the Reaping. So I had to get real creative with the pictures that I use here because it is a book and there's no pictures for it anywhere. So I use pictures from the original movies, and I also use some pictures that are just pictures. Uh, yeah. Okay, so I'm making this for you, dearest Remy, as I made a joke about a 5 paragraph properly cited review for you that you agreed to. You agreed to. And then, I obviously, it ballooned, from there, and it got the wheels in my head spinning. Sorry, and now we're here. But now you find yourself in the predicament of listening to me talk about this, something you don't care about. Woo. Okay. So you don't care about spoilers, and I know you don't really care too much about Hunger Games in general. So I'm going to do a pretty detailed plot recap with some analysis at the end. I want to talk about it. I want to talk. Okay, I want to talk about it. So I am doing this with a pretty detailed plot summary. Okay. Yeah. So the PowerPoint theme I realize may initially seem contradictory. I can explain it at the end, but that's a hint. Okay. Okay. So I know one of the things that you miss most about not living with me anymore is my really long recaps of something that I have just watched or played, and in this case, read, that blew me away, and I was vibrating with so much excitement that I had to talk about it. Well, here is that exact same experience, but modified for us now living 2 states away. Okay. So the book starts out with us learning that Hamish's birthday is Reaping Day, which is also July 4th. Funny. So this book starts with Hamish's 16th birthday. He lives with his mother and his brother, who he loves very much. He works for a woman who makes illegal alcohol, helping her haul grains and other tasks kind of related to alcohol making. He notes that he isn't a drinker, which RIP. But his brother is 10, so he's still too young for the reaping. And then in the morning of the reaping, he goes to see his beloved girlfriend, Lenore Dove, and she gives him his birthday gift, which is a flint striker, where one side is a snake and the other is a mockingjay, which is that. I know I texted you about this, but I didn't. It's strange. I don't know how flint strikers typically look. I don't know. I don't know the first thing about what a decorative flint striker would look like. So I was kind of like, oh, I don't know what I was imagining. Like something like kind of like this. She describes it, but like, and then I thought it was something kind of different because I don't know. I don't know how you would use this to strike, but hey, I again, I'm no expert. So, her Lenore Dove's uncle had made it for her at her request to give to Hamish for his birthday, and I really cannot stress enough how much Hamish and Lenore Dove love each other. Like they are obsessed with each other. It's really sweet. I don't know if you can read these, so I'm just gonna read these quotes that I selected and very cutely drew perfect circles around. Okay, so, this one here says, a few of the geese hiss to announce my arrival. Lenore Dove's was the first face they saw when they hatched, and they don't love anyone but her. But since I've got corn, they'll tolerate me today. I toss it away to call off her bodyguards and lean in to kiss her. Then I kiss her again, and she kisses me right back. That's so cute. Okay, this is after she gave him the flint striker. He says, I love it. I give her a long, soft kiss, and I love you like all fire. All fire is Covey talk, but that expression is ours. Usually it makes her smile, but she's dead serious now. You too. We kiss until I taste salt. I don't have to ask why. Look, it's okay, I reassure her. We're going to be fine. She nods, but the tears keep trickling. Lenore Dove, we're going to get through today just like last year and the year before and eventually move past it. Yeah. And then this is from the very end of the book, which, Lenore Dove dies, which, of course, we knew that kind of going into it. But anyway, so this is what he says about her. He says, I know one thing, though. The Capitol can never take Lenore Dove from me again. They never really did in the first place. Nothing you can take from me was ever worth keeping, and she is the most precious thing I've ever known. Well, I tell her that. She always says, I love you like all fire, and I reply, I love you like all fire, too. Very cute. Nothing you can ever take from me was ever worth keeping is a reference to Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. The main chick, Lucy Gray Baird, in that is Covey, which I don't know how much you know about these movies, but I'm assuming you don't remember that. But anyway, the Covey are a group of like singer, songwriter people from District 12. And Lucy Graybeard was the protagonist of Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and she was a part of the Covey. And Lenore Dove is a descendant of the Covey. So the fact that he's saying nothing you can ever take from me was ever worth keeping, and she's the most precious thing I've ever known, is a reference to one of the Covey songs that Lucy Gray sings in Ballad, which makes it extra sad. And then I know I sent you this one down here, but I just included it anyway. It's kind of smaller because I know I already sent it to you. But it says, I remember the joy on Lenore Dove's face when I gave her the poetry, the kisses that followed, and felt stronger. They can't destroy what really matters. Ugh. Really cute. Really cute. Okay. So again, I'm not sure how much you remember about the movies, but Hamish's Games is a quarter quell. So every 25 years they do a quarter quell, which is where they do a special games with extra circumstances. Katniss's Games in Catching Fire was a quarter quell, where the special circumstances were that the tributes were reaped from the existing pool of victors, putting Katniss back in the arena, which was, Snow's whole thing, to kill Katniss because he wanted to kill Katniss so bad for what happened at the end of her first Hunger Games, which is why he did this. And it was really unpopular, like in the Capitol. Nobody was kind of a fan of it, but Snow wanted to kill Katniss. So Haymitch's quarter quell special circumstances were that there were double the amount of tributes. Normally there are 24, 2 from each district, 1 boy, 1 girl, but these games had 48, so 4 from each district, which was 2 boys, 2 girls. We see the reaping. The female tributes are Maisie Donner and Luella McCoy. Haymitch is familiar with both of them. He doesn't really love Maisie, though, as she has the reputation for being the town mean girl. Luella is 13, so a couple years younger than Haymitch, and Haymitch is very fond of her because she's always been sweet to him. And she had a crush on him when she was younger, and he thought that was cute, all of this. Then the male contestants get reaped. The first is Wyatt Callow, and the next is Woodbine Chance. Yes, however, when Woodbine attempts to flee the square, he is shot and killed by peacekeepers. Lenore Dove attempts to stop the peacekeepers from taking away his body, begging to let his family see him. The peacekeepers start getting physical with Lenore Dove, causing Haymitch to intervene. Because of this, Drusilla, the capital person here to do the reaping, she's like the Effie trinket of this book. But she says that for Haymitch's transgression, and since they are now in need of a male tribute, that he is now the second boy to be reaped. But, he wasn't really reaped. He was just the second boy chosen. Haymitch is shocked by this, but that's just how it happens. The cameras turn back on. Drusilla pulls Haymitch's name, and off he goes. We see that Plutarch is here. Plutarch. Who we know from Catching Fire and Mockingjay. That's Philip Seymour Hoffman. Yeah, look at that. Okay, so Plutarch is obviously much younger here, and is there to shoot propaganda for the Capitol, and is assigned to District 12. After the reaping, Plutarch allows Haymitch to see his family, but only if they will be recorded for the Capitol. Drusilla was originally not going to let anybody see their families, but Plutarch kind of intervened and was like, hey, I can help you out. So Haymitch gives Sid a bag of gumdrops that he meant to give to Lenore Dove afterwards, or after the reaping, and asks Sid to give them to her. His mother and brother agreed to be filmed, but not Lenore Dove, which Haymitch is totally cool with. Lenore Dove is more kind of rebellious in general. Lenore Dove instead finds him after he's on the train, and they get a brief moment to cry and see the other for what they believe is the last time. She has the gumdrops. Okay, so now we are in the Hunger Games whole show. Luella and Hamish decide to be allies. Both are hesitant about Maisie and Wyatt. Wyatt is the son of bookkeepers, so all he knows about are betting odds, and he's not the most honorable dude. Maisie is one of the daughters of a rich, which is rich by District 12 standards, candy shop owner, and is seen to be mean and arrogant. Luella and Hamish decide that they will stick together. Maisie is awesome, though. I love her. She is such a bitch to Drusilla and the other Capital people, always calling out their outfits in poor taste. Her initial calling out of Drusilla goes very poorly, though, because Drusilla uses a riding crop to beat Maisie because of her comments. She does, people make a lot of jokes that Maisie is like the Elle Woods from Legally Blonde of this universe, which is funny. But okay, so after they get off the train, they spend the night and they have to do a whole chariot tribute introduction event. Again, I don't know how much you remember from the original movies, but this is where Katniss and Peeta have their on fire outfits on the chariots. Again, if you remember. So this is where they are paraded in front of the Capitol to introduce them to this year's tributes. However, during the chariot event, one of the horses from another district's chariot gets spooked by fireworks and breaks rank, ultimately disrupting all of the other district's chariots as well. District 12's chariot gets overturned in the chaos, and Luella's head is crushed under one of the wheels. Hamish is distraught over this. As peacekeepers come to collect her body, Hamish cannot bear the thought of them taking her away. So he scoops her up and starts running. He doesn't know where at first, but he eventually realizes that President Snow's house is nearby, so he runs there, laying Luella's body on his doorstep. He backs up and applauds Snow, looking at him right in his face. Peacekeepers catch up to him and take Luella's body away and drag Hamish back to the other tributes. Then they get their mentors. Since District 12 has no surviving victors, Lucy Gray was a victor from District 12, but she is dead by this point because her Hunger Games was the 10th Hunger Games. Correct me if I'm wrong. You don't know. You don't care. But I don't know why I said that. I think hers is the 10th. I could be wrong about that number, but early. And then now this is the 50th Hunger Games. We don't really know when she died. She survived the events of Ballad and Songbirds and Snakes, but we do see her grave at one point in this book. But obviously she would be. I guess it's 40 years. That's not that crazy for her to still be alive. But yes, she is dead by this point. So, but since there are no surviving victors, their mentors are Mags from District 4, the old lady from Catching Fire, and Wyrus from District 3, who's there with Katniss. Wyrus was the years she won the Hunger Games right before this, and is also in Catching Fire. Okay, so then they go to the training rooms where they slowly start to form a larger alliance with other districts, so the District 12 people. This is organized by Ampert, a 12-year-old boy from District 3, who we later learn is Beety's son. Beety is from Catching Fire. As well, their goal is to try to align every district together to oppose the careers, Districts 1 and 2, whose children train for the Hunger Games their whole lives. They call this new alliance the Newcomers. Through this, we see that Beety has a booth at the training area room, and he talks to Hamish about a potential plan to stop the Hunger Games because he saw his kind of defiant thing with Luella's body. And they can't speak freely because, there's cameras and peacekeepers everywhere, but they do kind of start to formulate a plan. They train for a little bit. I think it's 3 days, and then I could be wrong about that, but I think it's 3 days. And then Hamish is called to meet with Snow at Plutarch's mansion. He doesn't initially know that it's to meet Snow, but he is called to Plutarch's mansion. Plutarch shows Hamish his plants, and then a very sick President Snow arrives, vomiting blood everywhere. He asks for milk, which Hamish finds and drinks himself. Plutarch leaves to find more milk while Snow continues to be sick. Plutarch finds some and gives it to Snow, who appears to have vomited all of the poison out of his system. He fed another dude poisoned oysters. I forgot to put it here. And again, I am forgetting the person who he killed with this, but it was significant. It was someone to do... I know I just read this book, but I'm sorry, I don't remember this. But yeah, so Snow gave the other person poisoned oysters, and he ate some himself to kind of make sure it was done. And then he comes and he's still vomiting blood, but he survives. So So after Snow gets the milk that Plutarch brings him, he's gotten all the poison out of his system, and then Snow gives Haymitch his gift, which is a new Luella. She is a girl who is heavily drugged and has had her body and face modified to look like the old Luella. But she is not the same, and Haymitch picks up on it immediately. But he has no choice but to bring her back to the others and to kind of replace the old Luella. They decide to call her Lulu to not go along with what the Capitol wants, and also to kind of distinguish between old and new. Then there is the assessment with the game makers, which is this scene from the first Hunger Games where Katniss shoots the arrow into the like apple and the pig. Again, I don't know how much you remember, but just if you've seen the movie semi recently, this is the moment that I'm talking about, but for Haymitch. Okay, so Haymitch goes in with the intention of seeming like a rascal. That's kind of the name that he is giving his persona that he's trying to like sell himself as. But then things escalate. He calls the game makers murderers for Luella's death, and Haymitch gets scored a historic 1. So this is a scale of 1 to 12 to say, so it's the game makers basically televising who they think has the most potential to win the games, or not necessarily most potential, but who they think are the stronger candidates, and they score them on a scale of 1 to 12, and then it's broadcast on the news. So Haymitch getting a 1 is quite surprising. They say that the lowest it has previously gone, or that they've previously seen and remembered, is a 3, and that is typically given to the malnourished 12-year-olds, which Haymitch is not. Haymitch is 16, and he's pretty strong because he's been, doing a lot of manual labor his whole life. So it doesn't exactly fit, even if he pissed them off. So, but however, Haymitch is like honored to have pissed them off. He thinks it's kind of cool, but he's also scared. It's a two-sided thing. So then he is sleeping in the middle of the night in the apartment that everyone from District 12 shares, and then the power goes out. Beetee appears and properly lets him in on the plan to blow up a water tank under the Hunger Games arena and flood the underground control area. If the plan succeeds, it should take out the brain of the arena and fully shut down everything. Beetee tells Haymitch that Ampert is in on the plan as well, and that Beetee pissed off the Capitol by trying to sabotage the Capitol's communication network. And Snow, as punishment, made sure that Ampert was reaped and made sure that Beetee was his mentor. Fucked up. But Beetee knows that there's no chance for his son to survive, and he asks Haymitch to make sure that his son's death is quick, which Haymitch agrees to try to do. So after all this, it's time for the tributes to go on Caesar Flickerman's show, which goes pretty much according to plan. There's nothing like too crazy of note that happens here. The newcomers introduce themselves to sponsors, majorly read the audience to filth about their outfits. Haymitch comes off as likable, but guess who is on District 12's prep team now? Effie Trinket. Her and Haymitch meet, and they generally get along, which is cute. But however, now it's time for the games. Effie is the one who sees Haymitch off, which again is cute, and the games start. These Hunger Games are held in a beautiful, lush green meadow. Haymitch notes that the air smells like the most perfect day of spring. There are flowers and bunnies everywhere. However, he quickly notes that the air smells strange, and he plugs his nose to stop breathing it in. The gun goes off, and the games start. Haymitch, realizing that the air was strange, gives him an advantage because all the other tributes are in a bit of a daze as a result. Haymitch gets to the cornucopia first and gets a backpack with food, a spear, and a knife before he bolts. He has decided that he needs to abandon his alliance because he has to execute his and Beetee's plan with the help of Ampert. Almost half of the tributes die in the initial cornucopia bloodbath, which is pretty typical, but, since it's double the amount of tributes this year, it's a larger number than normal. This is from the illustrated Hunger Games, and isn't that so cool? I do like this style of shading, the like hatch style of shading. And I thought it was cute, so I put it here. So anyway, Haymitch begins to move north when he sees that there's a ton of apple trees, potatoes, and creeks with water. He feels stupid for lugging around his 25-pound backpack full of food and water, but decides that it's easier to just keep it than having to gather stuff every time he wants to eat. He stops by a creek to drink some water, and he watches a bunny join him at the creek until the bunny stops and dies, blood trickling out of its mouth. Haymitch quickly stops drinking and realizes that the water is poisoned, and the food and water in his backpack isn't. He was given charcoal tablets in his backpack, and he chewed and swallowed several of them. He throws up a ton, getting the poison out of his system, but he still feels horrible. He finds a blueberry field and buries himself in the dirt, falling into a sweaty and fitful sleep. When he wakes up, it's because Lulu has found him. He realizes that he actually did a piss poor job of hiding himself, and he is lucky that Lulu found him, is the one who found him and not a career. She is barely a full person, but Haymitch and the others of District 12 have become protective over her at this point. They know, they deduce that she is probably from District 12 or District 11, given the food that she likes, but they know that none of this is her fault and that she's still very much a victim. So Haymitch decides to watch out for her as he searches for the entrance to the underground arena. Underground area with the controls and such. Lulu gravitates towards the flowers that remind her of home. However, this proves to be a fatal mistake as she takes a deep breath of toxic pollen. There is nothing that Haymitch can do to help her, and she dies quickly. Haymitch hopes that whoever is controlling the pump that keeps her drugged will make her death painless, but no such relief comes, and she dies in pain. When the aircraft comes to collect her body, Haymitch feels protective over her and moves her body to a particularly thick bit of trees to prevent the aircraft from being able to bring her up. Because the aircraft is like a big claw that comes down to pick up the bodies. And so because he has kind of disrupted this whole process, the game makers unleash their first mutt on him, which are genetically altered animals that the Capitol genetically alters for the games. They previously genetically altered animals for the rebellion and everything kind of around that, but now they really only do it for the games. So with their first mutt that they released on him, it's these genetically altered butterflies. The butterflies sting him all over his body, causing great pain without leaving a mark. He runs away to try to get the butterflies off, allowing the people in the aircraft to retrieve Lulu's body. Okay, after this encounter, can you tell I'm strapped for pictures? There's no pictures from this. I gotta do what I can do. Okay. So after this encounter, Haymitch decides that he needs to find Ampert. They eventually meet up and speak in code to each other about executing their plan without the Capitol being able to hopefully decipher what they mean. They find an entrance to the underground area, and Haymitch brings Beatty's hidden bombs with him. It was disguised as a necklace that the children of District 9 wore. Amport retrieved them from their dead bodies. Haymitch attached the bomb to the water tank, which detonates. However, this attack only damages the central control system of the arena. It doesn't destroy it, as he hoped that it would. While Haymitch is trying to get out, Amport is pulled away. When Haymitch gets out, he realizes that mutt squirrels are tearing Amport apart, eating him alive. Haymitch tries really hard to get the squirrels off of Ampert's body, but there's nothing he can do. When the squirrels leave, all that's left are tiny bones, picked clean. During mourns Ampert and is upset that he was unable to keep his promise to Beatty to give Ampert a quick death. During this, a volcanic eruption happens on the other side of the arena, covering everything in ash. Some time passes and Haymitch continues north, hoping that he'll be able to find a generator at the edge of the arena that he can destroy. So he runs into some careers, which ends up being the first two people that he kills. Maisie comes in and saves him with a poisoned blow dart. She tells him, which pictured there, I don't know what it looks like, but it's what a poison dart thing looks like, can look like. So she tells him that Wyatt died protecting Lulu from careers, which led to her running off and finding Haymitch initially. Haymitch tells Maisie that Lulu is dead. Haymitch also tells Maisie that he wants to keep going north, though he doesn't tell her about his plans or that he blew up the water tank. They run into another, mostly because he can't, though. Like, he would tell her, but because the Capitol is, recording everything, he can't do that. So, and then they run into another game maker mutt, ladybugs, that suck up blood rapidly. And they are, really big. They're really big, and they attach to their bodies, and then they, suck up a whole bunch of blood. And both Haymitch and Maisie get covered, but they manage to stay alive. Then they run into several more careers, and during their fights, they encounter game makers, in the arena. Maisie and the careers briefly team up to kill the game makers, but Haymitch doesn't participate, much to Maisie's anger. He is frozen and shocked when everything is happening, but he later apologizes to Maisie about his lack of participation. They make it to the edge of the arena and find a generator, but there is a force field around it that propels anything that drops on it back up. Once they discover this, Haymitch and Maisie decide to split up. However, Maisie doesn't make it more than 20 feet before she gets attacked by mutt birds. They slice her to ribbons, basically. One goes for her throat, which kills her. Um, Haymitch again tries to help, but is unable to stop the birds from killing her. Haymitch stays with her as she dies. Uh, again, I had to get real creative with the pictures here. Okay, I don't have much, and I realized that this is really upsetting stuff, and I was very upset reading this, but I had to make some jokes. I had to make some jokes. Okay, okay. By this point, there are three tributes left. After Maisily dies, Haymitch, a newcomer named Welly, and a career named Silka. Haymitch decides to go find Welly and hopefully help her win. When he finds her hiding in a tree, she's on the brink of starvation. He gives her the last bit of his food and anything sponsors give him. In the morning, he leaves Welly to find wood to make a fire to cook his last potato. He is foraging for dry wood. He hears a scream and rushes back. He finds that Silka has decapitated Welly. Silka holds Welly's head up for Haymitch to see. Then they start to fight. They end up at the cliff where the generator is, and Haymitch is able to throw his axe off the cliff, having it bounce up and hit Silka in the head. um, killing her. During the fight, she sliced Haymitch's stomach, and he is holding in his intestines as he is trying not to die. He throws his last explosive at the force field around the generator, attempting to destroy it, but is knocked unconscious by the blowback. When he wakes up, he has bandages on his wounds, mostly on his stomach. He is kept alone in the apartment that he stayed at for a week, only having milk and bread to eat. After the week is over, he is forced to go to a lot of capital parties. Haymitch is deeply afraid for his loved ones, as everything that he did was with the idea that his death would absolve his family of punishment. But now he allows himself to be demeaned constantly at these parties because he hopes that his good behavior might save his family. At the last party he attends, Snow tells him, "Enjoy your homecoming," which makes Haymitch deeply afraid. He gets in the train to go home and is accompanied by Maisily, Wyatt, and Luella's coffins. Pictured there. Can you tell that I made that? Haha. So as soon as he gets off the train, he runs for his house, and when he gets there, he finds it on fire. He tries to break in, but Burdock, Katniss's dad, and Haymitch's best friend, stops him and says that it's too late. His mother and brother were burned alive, clutching each other. Haymitch is completely devastated by this. The funeral happens quickly, and he is in complete despair. He is afraid to see Lenore Dove, as he knows that she is in custody of the peacekeepers, and everyone tells him that he should leave her alone. She is released, and then he goes to find her. They have a really touching reunion where they hug and kiss and tell each other how much they love each other. Lenore Dove brought the gumdrops that Haymitch gave her in the beginning. She began to eat them, and Haymitch even fed her some. She makes a comment about going home and getting the gumdrops that Haymitch gave her. Haymitch sees blood start to come out of her mouth and panics. So the gumdrops were ones that Snow had given Lenore Dove, and that and they are poisoned. He tells her to throw up and asks if she has any charcoal tablets. She says she can't throw up since she hasn't eaten anything else, and there is no charcoal. All Haymitch can do is hold her as she dies in his arms. After this, Haymitch starts drinking heavily. All in an effort to forget, Lenore Dove visits his dreams. Haymitch blames himself. He drives away all other friends, even throwing rocks at them to leave him alone. In this chapter, there are pieces of the poem The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe all throughout. A poem about a man who's grieving the woman he loved, named Lenore. He is terrified that if he loves anyone else, that Snow will take them away from him. The only reason that he keeps living is because of Lenore Dove, her memory, and her desire for him to live. He drinks and eventually starts to watch Katniss, the daughter of his best friend, from a distance. As he watched Katniss grow up, he realizes that the capital can't take away the love that he and Lenore Dove shared. Okay, so since I pre-ordered my book and picked it up at Barnes & Noble, I got the exclusive Barnes & Noble interview with Suzanne Collins in the book that I have. She points out a lot of things that are really interesting, like she talks about the main ideas that she wanted to explore in this book were implicit submission and propaganda, and that once she had those core ideas hammered out, that she was interested in showing Haymitch's games. I'm not sure if you have seen Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I would bet you haven't. But that book/movie is President Snow's origin story. The idea that she was exploring with that book is, are we born evil or is evil thrust upon us? Which is a cool idea. But see, proof. I got the special Barnes & Noble exclusive, includes special content. It's the interview. But anyway, one idea that she points out in the interview is that Katniss doesn't have a reliable parent since her father died when she was 11 and her mother loses herself in grief, forcing Katniss to become the provider for herself, Prim, and their mother. Her mother does eventually get out of this overwhelming grief, but that period of months where she couldn't get out of bed and Katniss and Prim starved did irrevocable damage to Katniss and her mother's relationship. Snow was raised with his cousin Tigress, and their grandmother took care of them. But by the time they become teenagers, their grandmother becomes too old to take care of them, forcing Coriolanus, it's Snow, that's Snow's first name, in case you didn't know, to become the provider for himself, Tigress, and their grandmother through different circumstances to Katniss, but same general idea. They're like considered poor by the capital standards, and when Snow kind of gets into the elite, like school program, like it's really exciting for them, and that's like his way out. So both Katniss and Coriolanus grew up very quickly and had to be the sole decision makers for their family very young. In a way, both of them were more emotionally equipped for the situations that they find themselves in, and they had only to, as they have had to only rely on themselves for a long time. Haymitch does have a capable parent. His father died when he was young, but his mother is able to provide for both him, for both Haymitch and his younger brother Sid. So Haymitch still works and helps quite a bit with money and around the house. It's not like, they're rich or anything. They live in the very poor area of District 12. But he is able to rely on his mother. Like, she is, more capable than Coriolanus and Katniss's mother figures. He also has his girlfriend, Lenore Dove. Him and Lenore Dove have been together for a while, and they love each other very much. So Haymitch has 3 people in his life who he loves dearly, as opposed to Katniss, who only truly loves her sister. Again, in the beginning, she loves more people. By the end, she does love her mother, but again, it's complicated because of everything that happened when she was young. And Coriolanus, who only loved Tigress, again, in the beginning, that appears to go away. We don't really know fully what happens between them, but he doesn't. Snow is not the nicest dude, so, he kind of pushes her to the side. So Haymitch has more to lose, though, than both Coriolanus and Katniss. And also, until Haymitch is reaped and sent off to the capital, he's never been solely responsible for himself. So this change is pretty dramatic for him. Not only is he being forced to grow up very quickly, he is forced to do it in the literal most traumatic of circumstances. He has a lot to lose, which Snow learns very quickly and uses to his advantage at every possibility. And ultimately, because Haymitch has so many people he loves, his pain is that much worse, causing his rapid downward spiral. Katniss and Coriolanus don't lose as much as Haymitch does. Both of them lose people, and Coriolanus is a fucking weirdo. So he's evil. He's very evil. He doesn't really care about the people in his life. Katniss does lose quite a bit of people, but she ends with Haymitch still alive. She ends with Peeta, more importantly, still alive. And her mother doesn't die. And, even though shit between Gale is complicated, Gale is not dead. So, she loses her sister, which is obviously, extremely traumatizing and horrible. But she doesn't lose everyone. Haymitch loses everyone. One of the most interesting things that this book does is that it expands the world, but also expands our understanding of the rebellion specifically. I think that the whole original trilogy kind of setting off this whole genre that defined a lot of YA fiction in the 2010s is that you always have a female protagonist who is special, who is the only one that can save the world, the only one to tear down the government, the only one to save everyone. You saw it in Hunger Games, but also with the other big dogs of the time, like Divergent, Mortal Instruments, Uglies, The Selection, Matched, Maze Runner. Though the gender of the protagonist is different, but the general idea is the same. I was really into those books as a middle schooler, so, like, I feel like that subgenre was, like, alive and well at the time. So all these popular books in the era were really indicative of the culture of the time, this niche but extremely popular market of these female-led YA dystopian books. Hunger Games, however, was universally considered to be the best one. Middle school me might have disagreed for a little bit there before Allegiant came out. Yes, I was a Divergent kid. What, did I have the best taste as a middle schooler? No. Okay? But, we grow and change, and we acknowledge our flaws. And Divergent, not very good. And I'm a little scared to revisit it because I just don't think it's very good. I don't think it's very good. And I don't know. Middle school me, like, she didn't know what she was doing. So, and I also was really big into Mortal Instruments. And, upon reflection, I don't know how good those are either. The one I did like was the other series by that same author, Clockwork something, and I'm forgetting what it's called. But that one was an actual banger. That one I still think was pretty decent. Mortal Instruments, had the old pseudo incest thing. Whatever. I'm getting distracted. So, but all the grown-ups or middle schoolers with peak taste knew that Hunger Games was the best kind of this YA dystopian uh, era, which is also interesting because Hunger Games is the only one to actually get like a complete movie adaptation of the books. And there's still, books coming out and people still care about it. And movies are still coming out, which is kind of crazy, which, shows that it was the one that people liked the best. And yes, a large part of that success is because of the politics of Hunger Games. Hunger Games isn't interested in sugarcoating or romanticizing the violence that is on display here, the way that the others of the genre might. In fact, the whole point of Hunger Games is to criticize the glorification of violence. The politics of Hunger Games has always been more fleshed out than its counterparts. Its emphasis on class, oppressive government, propaganda, and everything around that was a lot of middle schoolers' first introduction to these ideas in fiction. It explicitly showed the reader why that is bad in very easy to understand terms. But ultimately, it could be argued to be a part of the teenage female protagonist who has come along to save everyone genre, even if it was the progenitor and considered to be the best and most nuanced. However, what Sunrise and the Reaping does is that it shows that this rebellion effort to be much longer and much more hard fought than we initially thought. While you do get the feeling of that in Hunger Games and that Katniss is a part of something much bigger than herself, you don't necessarily understand the true time and scope until this book. You do learn that in Mockingjay, everything kind of going on behind the scenes to orchestrate this, but not to the level of Sunrise and the Reaping because of longevity. You know that this plot was something that was planned. You think that this plot to kind of overthrow the government was something that was planned quickly and recently. And in a way, it was. Katniss was the right person to provoke the Capitol at the right time. When she and Peeta were going to kill themselves at the end of the first games and Snow stopped it, allowing both of them to win, then everything has already been in motion and was kicked into high gear. Haymitch almost was Katniss. He had everything going for him, the knowledge, the help from Beetee, Mags, Wyrus, and Plutarch. He had the core to quell and all the extra attention that brought. He had the right attitude, the right brain, the right body, and the willingness to end the Capitol show pony right there, at great personal risk. But what he didn't have on his side was luck. Haymitch was in that arena largely alone as well. He had Ampert, but Ampert was only executing the plan of his father and was only 12. He could get messages from Mags and the others through sponsorship gifts, but it was up to him to do everything. And he got so close. He was so close to flooding and destroying the arena. He blew up the water tank, but it just was not enough. Through no fault of his own, he ultimately fell just short, and he paid the ultimate price for it. His loved ones died extremely painful deaths. The pain from that drove Haymitch to complete and total self-destruction, only surviving for the sake of the dead. Then when Katniss comes in, her quarter quell is very different. Half of the tributes in the arena had previously worked towards some kind of rebellion effort. And all of that half was explicitly working to destroy the arena, to start the rebellion, and for Katniss. Everyone is older, wiser, and more experienced. As far as we know, Haymitch was the guinea pig, testing the waters to see how everything would go. Katniss was a fully planned, fully funded effort to destroy the games. And had Haymitch been born 20 years later, he very well could have been the Mockingjay. However, I need to state that Katniss is special, but she is most special for her timing. Lots of people have wanted to take down Snow in the games. We see that now for at least 25 years, the same group of people have been thinking about and trying to stop the games. Katniss herself is not like other female protagonists, though, in this genre, because it is not just her leading these efforts. She's part of something much bigger, something she doesn't fully understand until the end of the series. What rebellion actually is, what the new world is that they're striving towards, what does it mean to be a symbol of something you aren't fully knowledgeable of. Plutarch, Beetee, Wyrus, Mags, Finnick, Joanna, and Haymitch all planned something much better for Katniss. Katniss was the right person at the right time that could take the rebellion effort over the finish line. That is one thing that I loved about Sunrise and the Reaping, is kind of the recontextualization of everything that happened later. Another thing that I loved about it is that everyone who worked towards this rebellion does not expect to see tomorrow. They are not all thinking about the grand scheme, the larger idea. They are focused on now. They need to work now. Mockingjay shows an answer to the bigger, more long-term questions of a rebellion. And I love the way that the rebellion looks in this book, because Sunrise very much has the same feeling as Andor. I will note that, Andor is better than Sunrise and the Reaping. I'm not saying anything crazy. Like, Sunrise is as good, but there are, I feel like, similarities. In that you have a handful of well organized rebels working to disrupt a government that has more power than they could ever hope to stop quickly. Plutarch has the same energy as Luthen. Both are condemned to use the tools of their enemy. Both have sold their souls for this. Both work towards a sunrise they will never hope to see. Though the difference here is that Plutarch does see the sunrise on the world that he burned himself to achieve. And I'm kind of specifically referencing this when when Luthen says, I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see, and the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. This is definitely the attitude that Plutarch has in Sunrise on the Reaping, though that attitude does change quite significantly by the time that the rebellion actually happens. And, there's certainly a longer kind of time gap between this, in Star Wars and the actual, death of the Emperor and Darth Vader. But it's in Luthen. Obviously, we don't know how long he lives, but but yeah, it's really interesting that I feel like Plutarch kind of has this same general take on life. Though I will say that Plutarch's morals are a bit more complex than Luthen's. He does a lot more evil shit for the capital in the name of being undercover, but we don't exactly know where the line is within him. Though Luthen does some evil shit too, and I'm sure, I'm making this before Andor season 2, but given Luthen's lack of appearance in even Rogue One, it's safe to say that he never does get to see that sunrise. And we also don't really know Luthen, he does some evil shit in the name of the bigger picture. And I'm sure he's going to do more semi-evil shit. Evil shit, I say, like, not, you know, is letting Anto Krieger's whole crew die just to protect one source, the most morally correct thing to do. I don't know, but it did kind of secure everything that was going on for the rebellion. There's a dove on my balcony right now. There's 2 doves. That's crazy. Anyway, um, so yeah, it's safe to say that Luthen doesn't see the sunrise that he is fighting for, and Cassian doesn't either. Katniss and Plutarch do, which is more optimistic than Andor and Rogue One, that they both go through quite a lot to get there. Haymitch sees Plutarch not long after his games, and Haymitch tells Plutarch that he has nothing to live for, that his life is now entirely meaningless. And Plutarch is optimistic here, but also sees the bigger picture. He essentially tells Haymitch that he was special because he was able to imagine a different world, and that he was willing to fight for that. They may not see the fruits of that labor today, not tomorrow, maybe not even in their lifetimes, but the fact that Haymitch fought it all made everything that comes after worth it. What he sacrificed was not pointless. His life will forever have meaning. That conversation between Plutarch and Haymitch happens in the same attic that this scene takes place in the movies. Okay, so one criticism of this book that I have seen is that the frequent use of familiar faces is just fan service. And as someone who is extremely critical of sequels or prequels calling back to old times, just to remind us of something hollow, watch my entire Star Wars PowerPoint again if you need a reminder how I feel about that. I do not think that the criticism rings true here, because every character here is here for a reason. Everyone has something to do, something to contribute. This whole book recontextualizes so much from the original trilogy. It gives all these old characters so much more context to their actions in the original books, but most especially in Catching Fire. When old characters are brought back for a reason, then I am happy. Especially here, this feels like one of the better examples of this, and when so many characters are callbacks. What the fuck do we learn about these 3 characters that is significant in these new fucking shows? Like, that could anything that these bitches do, like, be considered recontextualizing their actions from the original? And granted, this is a sequel, but all this is after Clone Wars, but Cad Bane is just there for fan service, just there to be like, oh, that's Cad Bane, and then Ahsoka is nothing, and Bo-Katan spits on the legacy of her sister, that and like her whole arc that she went through in Clone Wars, which I know or that you heard me talk about. with my Star Wars PowerPoint, but like, you know, none of their stuff, and there's more. There's more characters that I could put on here. Fucking everyone from Mandalorian. And, anything that has been all of the shows except for Andor, since then. But well, except for the Acolyte, because there's no callbacks. Except for Plagueis, which I don't really even count because that was like oh, look at that guy in the cave. Whatever. That's whatever. That's an Easter egg. But do they have any significant okay, I'm getting off track. But since the original trilogy felt like we were stepping into something that was already being worked on, this showed us just how long these people have been working towards their goal. It would not hit the same if all the characters were new and unconnected to that older narrative, or to the original narrative, sorry, because of how closely intertwined Hamish himself is with the originals. It would be strange if there were no additional familiar faces. But I really feel like the characters from the original series enhance this book, and their inclusion enhances their original stories as well. Take notes, Star Wars. And especially Panem, and even more so District 12, are a much smaller population than all of Star Wars, so it makes sense that Hamish would know Peeta and Katniss's parents. They all live in the same very small city, and they're all around the same age, so of course they would know each other. The way that this book handles heartbreak is also very interesting to me. That is obviously the element that has stuck with me the most when, all I do is fucking cry over the ending of this book. Well, I talk about how this book expands our knowledge and understanding of the rebellion. It also expands our knowledge of heartbreak. We think we knew what Hamish's games were like, but we learn in this book that the version that is shown is one that is heavily edited by the Capitol to edit out anything that Hamish has done to rebel. Hamish's deeds themselves are heavily edited to make him appear worse and more cowardly. While we thought we knew what his games were, it shows that the propaganda that the Capitol has been doing has been happening long before the games with Katniss. We see that in the erasure of Lucy Gray in this book as well. Suzanne Collins seems particularly interested in propaganda through erasure and editing, which is extremely timely and relevant, though she couldn't have known the true extent of that when she wrote this book. This book really shows how much the Capitol has influenced and how long it has been doing this. This rebellion has been ramping up for far longer than we initially thought, but so has the efforts to put a stop to it, and it completely destroyed Hamish in the process. Katniss sees Hamish as a drunk loser before they get closer and catching fire and Mockingjay. Hamish knows that how he appears and he doesn't care. But now that we know the toll that it took on him and the fact that he had to lead 24 more sets of kids to their death before Katniss and Peeta is even more heartbreaking. The speech that Hamish gives Katniss during their Victor's tour, where he says that that there is no getting off the train. Sorry, let me go back. This scene, Hamish, please just let me get through this trip. This trip, girl, wake up. This trip doesn't end when you get back home. You never get off this train. That hits even harder now because we know kind of the toll that if this is taken on Hamish and how long he's been doing this. And also, this is from the Victor's tour. So, he has never had a tribute get this far before. So, he is the only person uniquely qualified to understand the weight of being a victor. And, when Katniss is like, thinking short term, Hamish is like, this is your fucking life now. You gotta, like, you cannot look at this in the short term. This is every year for the rest of your life. Yeah. Okay. So yes, the politics of this book are really effective, but what I think elevates it is how the politics are intertwined with the personal. Politics feel important because of how it impacts the characters that we love, which is what makes the heartbreak that much more effective. Seeing how long these characters fought, but also how much they were put down, makes what happens in Mockingjay feel more satisfying. I also saw someone say that Mags had to watch every Hunger Games happen, but was unable to see their end because she died in the 75th Hunger Games, which was the last. Which is really sad to me because we know how much she wanted to end the games, and that the Capitol tortured her so much that she was unable to speak in Catching Fire. And they also tortured Varys so much as a result of Hamish's games that people think that she had a stroke, and that kind of impacts her, like why she's like that. But anyway, I have some pictures of more quotes. So this is from Hunger Games, the first Hunger Games book. So this is when Katniss just got volunteered for Prim, and she's on stage, and she says, "Now I am truly in danger of crying, but fortunately Haymitch chooses this time to come staggering across the stage to congratulate me. Look at her, look at this one," he hollers, throwing an arm around my shoulders. He's surprisingly strong for being such a wreck. I like her. His breath reeks of liquor, and it's been a long time since he's bathed. Lots of, he can't think of the word for a while. Spunk, he says triumphantly. More than you, he releases me and starts to the front of the stage. More than you, he shouts, pointing directly in the camera. Is he addressing the audience, or is he so drunk he might actually be taunting the Capitol? I'll never know, because just as he's opening his mouth to continue, Haymitch plummets off the stage and knocks himself unconscious. I mean, he's definitely talking to the Capitol here. But also, like, all this is really, to, like, take the attention off of her, to, like, give her a second. But we also have this other quote here, which is directly after, but where Katniss says, "He's disgusting, but I'm grateful. With every camera gleefully trained on him, I have just enough time to release the small choke sound in my throat and compose myself. I put my hands behind my back and stare into the distance. I can see the hills I climbed this morning with Gale. For a moment, I yearn for something. The idea of us leaving the district, making our way into the woods. But I know I was right about not running off, because who else would have volunteered for Prim?" But yeah, so, like, Haymitch, like, really took a dive for her. Like, you know, he really took one just to, like, he made a complete fool out of himself just to give her a second to compose herself so that she would be ready to face the cameras, which is, you know, like, when you're reading this book, because it's from Katniss's perspective, you don't know what Hamish is thinking or why he did this, or, if he's just some drunken loser. But now that we have the context of Sunrise and the Reaping, we know that this was all, like, done genuinely, and that's really heartbreaking. Okay, aren't these pictures so funny? So funny. This is okay. I mentioned this at the end, but of the slide, but I this is so funny. I found these in my camera roll from 2013. This is genuine history. The fucking flower crown. I know you were in, the Attack on Titan trenches on Tumblr, and the flower crown era of that time, but Snow with the fucking the phone and the Starbucks and the flower crown and the young. It's supposed to be a joke, but it's even more of a joke now, because it's like, this is so fucking funny. And then also this style of edit with the old Instagram, like, iconic. Like, this shit. I these are genuine pictures from my camera roll. These are all real. This is real. I just went through my camera roll to fucking find these. I didn't need to look on Google. This is like, I have, like, genuine fandom history in my camera roll, which I'm like, kind of like, oh, this is like history. Like, I feel like I've documented something. But this is so funny to me. It's just so funny, like, of the era. I don't know. I think it's really funny. But I did this to prove I've been a Hunger Games girly. Like, yes, Divergent was kind of my main squeeze for a bit there, but I've always really loved Hunger Games. And these are 12 years old. These are 12 years old in my camera roll. So, yeah. 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 Anyway. Okay, so this book makes all the connections between Haymitch, Mags, BD, Wirus, and Plutarch that much richer. Sunrise and the Reaping didn't need to exist, but I do believe that the overall story is that much better for it. Maybe I'm saying this as someone who's inspired to read quickly for the first time in 10 years. Maybe I'm saying this as a former middle school Hunger Games fan. Maybe I'm saying this because this book is good. But I really loved it, and I guess I really am just my 13-year-old self. Though I'd say I am my 13-year-old self just amplified, because now I make these PowerPoints, and I love anime, which is, worse. You see what my apartment looks like. You know what it looks like in here. And I buy myself junk, which, again, a lot. And I've got a lot of anime shit around here. This is just a taste. But thank you, Suzanne Collins, for making that connection that much more obvious. I'm so excited for the movie to come out next year. Please, God, let it be good. I feel like this one has the bones to be good, but we just need a good team to make it now. If it sucks, I'm going to become one with nature. Say goodbye to all this entertainment stuff. Which, to be fair, is me when I lie. But yes, these pictures are real screenshots. Okay. I've been rereading the original Hunger Games. I've actually been reading that pretty quickly, but I've been getting these weird shifts at work where I'm alone and I have nothing to do, so I've been reading Hunger Games to work, which does help get help me get through it quickly. But one thing that about rereading this book after having just read Sunrise on the Reaping is that it gives so much new context to everything that Haymitch does. His drinking, his attitude, his advice that he gives Katniss and Peeta are all put in a different light. Also, Effie too, in a way. Very excited to get to Catching Fire because I'm sure that everything will be will be better, or all the context kind of pays off there because a lot of the characters that are in Sunrise are in Catching Fire more. Also, side note, I thought I had a faint memory of the book because I read it, in early middle school. I don't remember if it was late elementary school or early middle school, but it was one of those. And turns out I don't remember anything. I don't remember anything from the book. Everything I know is from the movie, and I know that may come as a surprise, but the book is better than the movie. I know, shocker. But I'm really enjoying the extra details and especially the slower pace, particularly in the games. I also like Peeta and Gale more in the book. Rue also gets quite a bit more time. I'm also really enjoying hearing Katniss's inner monologue because while Jennifer Lawrence does a fantastic job at conveying her emotions through her face, in the movie it is it's different to actually, hearing her or reading her exact thought process, which I am enjoying. But yeah, everything with Haymitch is awesome. Katniss feels like Haymitch calling her sweetheart is Katniss feels like Haymitch is calling her sweetheart in order to be condescending. But after you read Sunrise on the Reaping, you learn how important that nickname is to Haymitch as he called Luella sweetheart. He also knows the similarities between Luella and Katniss in the epilogue. But still, knowing that Haymitch called Katniss sweetheart is him being 100% genuine is really heartbreaking. His excessive drinking, again, how he kind of helps out, how he helps Katniss out at her reaping by drawing attention to his drunken behavior. The advice that he gives her and Peeta is stuff that he absolutely learned in his games. For example, his advice to Katniss in the games being almost the exact same advice that Iris gives him during his games. The whole way that he calms down after she thinks she's doomed her family by shooting an arrow at the roast pig in front of the game makers. All stuff that is pulled directly from his story. Either Suzanne Collins had this shit planned out already, or she worked backwards, and all of that is cool. I'm sure that I will have more to say when I read Catching Fire and Mockingjay. Perhaps I will add an addendum when I get there. Let me know if you're interested in that. But we've got more quotes. This one, I don't know if you can see because I don't know if my computer is blocking. I hope it's not. Otherwise, you will have blocked out some of the text that I wrote, which is fine. I read it, but I hope it's not blocked. Anyway. So this is from Hunger Games, where Haymitch says, where he calls her sweetheart for the first time, and he says, "And you, sweetheart," says Haymitch. Somehow, Haymitch call me sweetheart takes me off enough to that I'm at least able to speak. Which is like, she thinks he's being a joke when it's not a joke. Okay. And then this one over here is from the epilogue of Sunrise on the Reaping, where Haymitch says, "I first saw the girl at the Hob when she was just a baby. Burdock was so proud of her. He toted her around everywhere. After he died in that mine explosion, she started coming alone, trading the odd squirrel or a rabbit. Tough and smart, her hair in 2 braids, then reminding me for all the world of Luella McCoy, my sweetheart of old. And after she volunteered for the games, that nickname couldn't help but slip out. I didn't want to let them in, her and Peeta, but the walls of a person's heart are not impregnable, not if they have ever known love." That's what Lenore Dove says anyway, which is so sweet. And then we have this other one from Hunger Games, where Katniss says, "Do you think they'll arrest me?" I asked. "Doubt it. Be a pain to replace you at this stage," says Haymitch, which is like, oh, fuck. Yeah, I mean, Haymitch knows what he's talking about, which is really depressing, but fuck, man, that's crazy. That's crazy that Suzanne Collins, had that in there. Again, I don't know if she's just the queen of working backwards or she had this shit all planned out. But either way, it's really impressive, how everything connects. And because this is subtle shit, you don't think, when you read this, when doubt it, be a pain to replace you at this stage, nobody's like, is Haymitch talking about his own games or his own experience? But now you're like, oh shit, he's talking about Lulu and Luella, or even Woodbine. He's talking about both of them, and so it's like, oh, so layered. Very interesting. Anyway, this was my Sunrise on the Reaping experience and steps. Made me quite sad, but I did love it. But anyway, thank you for listening. I hope this was entertaining. Uh, yeah. Thank you, Remy.